Thus, we see that the first step toward civilization requires that a man conquer one or more of the planets, to a certain degree at least. Unbridled passion, such as generated by the primitive Mars rays, is no more permissible under the regime of modern civilization. Neither is the tenet that might is right any longer admissible, save in wars when we return to barbarism. The Mars quality of physical prowess, that at one time made it a virtue to attack others and take away property, is no longer admired in the individual. It is punished by various means, according to law, though it is still effective as far as nations are concerned, who go to war under this primitive impulse for purposes of territorial aggrandizement. However, as said, Mars has been conquered to a great degree in civil and social life, in order that the Venus love might take the place of the Mars passion. As previously noted, the children of primitive man were left to their own resources, as soon as they had been taught to defend themselves in physical warfare. With the advent of Mercury, another method is observable. The battle of life nowadays is no longer fought with physical weapons alone. Brain, rather than brawn, determines success. Therefore, the period of education has been lengthened as mankind advanced, and it aims principally at mental accomplishments because of the mercurial rays which accompany the Venus development of modern civilization. Thus man sees nature from a more sunny side when he has learned to respond to the sun, Venus, Mercury, Mars, Moon, and Saturn, even if only in a very slight measure. But although these various stages of evolution have gradually brought man under the dominance of a number of planetary rays, the development has been one-sided, for it has aimed to foster interest solely in things over which he has a proprietary right. His business, his house, his family, his cattle, farm, etc., are all vitally important and must be taken care of. His possessions must be increased if possible, no matter what happens to the possessions, family, etc., belonging to anyone else, that not being his concern. But before he can reach to a higher stage of evolution, it is necessary that this desire to appropriate the earth and retain it for himself if possible must give way to a desire to benefit his fellow men. In other words, egoism must give way to altruism. And just as Saturn, by yielding the whiplash of necessity over him in his primitive days, brought him up to his present point of civilization, so also Jupiter, the planet of altruism, is destined to raise him from the state of man to Superman, where he will come under the Uranian ray in respect to his emotional nature, where passion generated by Mars will be replaced by compassion, and where the childlike consciousness of lunar origin will be replaced by a cosmic consciousness of the Neptunian ray. Therefore, the advent into our lives of the Jupiterian ray marks a very distinct advance in the human development. As taught in the Rosicrucian cosmal conception, we are to advance from our present Earth period into the Jupiter period, and therefore the Jupiterian ray marks that high stage of altruism which will then be a prominent factor in our relations one with the other. And it will be readily understood that before we can really respond to the rays of Jupiter, we must in a measure cultivate altruism and conquer the egoism that comes through the mercurial reasoning power. We have learned to conquer some of the phases of Mars and the Moon. We may have also learned to conquer some of the lower phases of Mercury and Venus. The more we have overcome these, the better we shall be able to respond to the highest vibratory forces emanating from these planets. Yes, if we strive earnestly, we shall someday be able to overcome even the highest stage of the Venus love, that always attaches itself to an object which is owned by us. We love our children because they are ours. We love our husbands and wives because they belong to us. We take pride, Venusian pride, in their moral characteristics or mercurial pride in their accomplishments. But Christ set a higher standard. Unless a man leave his father and mother, he cannot be my disciple. The idea that we should neglect our fathers and mothers, or that we must hate them in order to follow him, was far from his mind, of course, but father and mother are only bodies. The soul that inhabits this body of the father and mother is to be loved, not the mere physical garment. Our love should be the same whether the person is old or young, ugly or beautiful. We should look for the beauty of the soul, for the universal relationship of all souls, and not mind so much the relationship of the bodies. Who are my mother and my brothers? Said the Christ. and pointed to his disciples, those who were at one with him in his great work. They were closer to him than any brother could be on account of mere physical relationship. This attitude constitutes an upward step from the Venus love, which places the emphasis on the physical garments of the loved ones and leaves out of consideration the soul that is within. The Jupiterian love, on the other hand, takes cognizance only of the soul, regardless of the body it wears. The mercurial or reasoning phase of mentality is also changed by response to the altruistic Jupiter. Cold calculation is out of the question. One who feels the expansive ray of Jupiter is big-hearted, first, last, and all the time, and in every respect. Big-hearted where his emotions are concerned, his love. Big-hearted where all things of the world are concerned. A jovial fellow is an apt expression. He is welcomed and loved by everyone he meets because he radiates not the common selfishness, but a desire to benefit others that breeds in us a feeling of trust, diametrically opposed to the sense of distrust we instinctively feel when we come in contact with a Saturn-Mercury man.